turning my phone off, so it'll stop.
Turning the phone off, turning the phone off. All right, let's get down to it, boppers. Who out there, not my guest, can tell me the name of the movie that is from? Wait for it. I believe our guest today knows what it's from.
Yeah,
Florida Man?
Warriors. Warriors.
Warriors! Come out
All
and
right, big boppers.
play! Oh, wow, you sounded so reverberatory at that moment. That's wild. Anyway, all right, are we on? Are we on? I'm trying to look at my Facebook page and I can't tell.
I don't have a tab open.
All right, well, let's just hope it is. This is Arusha from Push, a Cure fan documentary, because I can see it on YouTube. And today we have a very special guest who was one of the very few, very lucky, everyday common people who got in to see The Cure play at the BBC in London on... The taping was October 30th, but it aired on October 31st. I'm calling him Florida Man. But, my friend, why don't you introduce yourself to the nice people?
I think most folks would know me as Ben Crawley. Ben's my middle name, Eric's my first name. So, or as Arusha's called me, Barrick. But yeah, we'll, we'll just go with Ben today.
Okay, we're going to go with Ben. Okay, hi, Diane. I'm glad that you're there, because I know that Facebook is... Diane, you're watching on Facebook, right? I think so. So, what I wanted to do first is talk a little bit about Florida Man before we get into the weeds with The Cure and Ben's origin story. So, for those of you who do not know what Florida Man is, so basically here in the United States, the United States is like 10 different countries. I mean, it's just, there's such a wide range of what it is to be an American. And it's a big joke about Florida, especially now, because we're about to be surrounded by a bunch of Florida men. Hey, and I see Black Gates of Doom. Oh, Kurtie, hi. And so you're watching on YouTube, so that's good. Diane says hi, Ben. So anyway, I'm going to read from Wikipedia, Florida Man. Florida Man is an internet meme first popularized in 2013, referring to an alleged prevalence of people performing irrational or maniacal actions in the United States, in the U.S. state of Florida. Internet users typically submit links to news stories and articles about unusual or strange crimes and other events occurring in Florida. So it goes on from there, and there's a game that you can play where you Google Florida Man and you put in your birthday, and you're just going to get the most ridiculous headlines. To give you an example, if I just... all I did this morning was Google Florida Man, and I'm going to read just the headlines that I see. Florida man survives vicious bee attack, stung more than 100 times. Luckiest person in the world. Florida man survives 300 or 30-foot fall. Oh, and 100 bee stings. Okay, so that's the same one. Florida man accused of posing as Elon Musk, defrauding elderly woman. Florida man finds intruder in his home, tackles him as he tries to run away. And then some not so funny ones. Florida man arrested to plot to bomb the NYSE. So, Ben, do you have any words about Florida man or your lovely state?
I mean, I have some family members that have definitely been their own version of Florida Man. Won't get into that, but it's a wild place. We do have a.
Is there something in the water or what's up?
I mean, my family ended up here because they were heading to Miami and they broke down and just landed kind of in Central Florida, and it was kind of accidental where we started off. But tons of people come here fleeing whatever they don't like elsewhere, and there's all this hype about this place being this thing of freedom. But
freedom.
I'm actually, yeah,
We
I'm
gotta be
actually
free.
Florida native, and it's concerning just the amount of people that have come here. I'm afraid we'll run out of water or something. Drinkable.
You've
Just
inspired
what is
me.
it that you want to do?
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride. And we want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
That's Florida, everybody. Yeah. Oh, cool. So,
yeah, I have a brother that would really relate with that. He's free on his motorcycle. Hi, Mike.
so David Broom is here. JoJo is here. James McGowan is here. Cheryl Gatesway, Florida Man, is a Florida fan. That's true. Florida Man is a Florida fan. Okay. Yeah, I got Curti. Richard Balia is here. Hello, Richard. Richard is a photographer, a very well-known photographer from France. I wonder, Richard, if you've been to Florida. I wonder what Richard would do with Florida. Actually, he's probably photographed a band from Florida. And here's Allison Humphreys and Sophie.
I met Richard on the floor at Troxy after the show. I said, I recently followed you on Facebook. So anyway, hi, Richard.
Nice.
Restart.
So before we get into how the fuck you got into the BBC, because we'll get into even what that is for those of you, maybe there's somebody watching this who has no idea. But let's get a little bit of your background story. Like, are you a Cure fan? Like, are you just, bored, or was this a bet or what?
No, of course. Yeah, it's hardcore fan. BBC was my 20th show. Collected all the records years ago. It's this kind of tumbleweed addiction of get to more and more shows as time's going on. So when the BBC was announced, I mean, obviously I threw my hat in. And there's more to that story, but obviously, my hand is pointing the wrong place. Yeah, there's definitely some fandom in this house.
What you and I talked about, do you want to talk about your first Cure show and that pilgrimage you made?
Oh,
briefly?
Wow. Yeah, no, I think, God,
what year was it, etc.?
Weird time. Yeah, it was kind of building, but so I started really kind of gravitating towards the Cure more in high school. Hung out with just a random number of girls that all loved them. I even hung out with a girl that had a boyfriend named Robert, and I was like, he had scored points because his name was Robert too. Right. But I remember finding their website in the dial-up internet days, and then also probably Chain of Flowers, and just started kind of learning more about them. And I was working in a skate shop in a record store, and anytime I would see another Cure tape pop up in the used bin, or another CD, or a bootleg CD like the B-Sides collection, I just started buying it. And I was just driving around, like going skateboarding or something, and just listening more and more and more. And I remember like the Dream Tour taking shape on the website when they announced that. And by that point, there was things just kind of like hitting that you're leaving your childhood into an adult phase, and eBay was a thing. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like this like weird early eBay seller where I was like liquidating all my like childhood toys and collectibles into money. And so as the Dream Tour was approaching, the closest shows were Atlanta and West Palm, and the tour started in Atlanta. So I picked my friend up that morning and made him hurry up and finish his bowl of cereal. We drove 500 miles to Atlanta, saw the Cure play, left a little early during Faith at the end.
Hold up. I gotta stop you, because you just said 500 miles like it's like going to the fucking laundromat. Yeah. So where were you living at the time?
Outside of Orlando, or Central Florida. So.
All right. And so for people who don't know anything, so let's like pretend this is the United States. Is that even going to work? Like this this is Florida way down here. Like New York is way up here. California is way over here. So Ben was in Orlando, Florida, and you drove 500 miles?
Yeah, I think it's like just under 5 to the
To,
west something amphitheater. Yeah, Mars
like,
Amphitheater or whatever it's called.
I think it was Lakewood.
Lakewood. Yeah, yeah, that was it. Yeah, drove all that way, got there, went to Little Five Points, ate a slice of pizza, and then made it to the venue. And I ran into somebody who said they'd run into most of the band, but that Robert was flying it. They had told them that Robert was flying in that morning or something. Like the band had been in New York or something. So someone on the street had some info. And then we get to the venue, and I mean it was all business. We were like in the second section, and I mean to me it was, oh my god, like you just kind of break into this trance. And by that point, what was really fun was the guy that owned that record store I worked at. He he wasn't a huge Cure fan, but I remember like when Blood Flowers, the promo got to that shop, and he's like, I got something for you. And I think it came out right around like January, February of
Yep.
2000, and the tour starts in May. And
February. Yep.
and but Bob, beautiful guy that he was, quite a character. He's like, check this out, and he goes right to song 2, and he's like, listen to this shit, and he just starts like playing, watching me fall. He loved watching me fall, and it was like he kind of becomes this little Cure fan with me, and he was kind of tracking my enthusiasm for them because like I'm buying everything that's popping up in the used bin. I was taking the bootleg VHS concerts and watching them, and so by that point, like I mean, so I'd listened to the album enough to where it was like the sing along the whole time. I remember this woman next to me was just kind of like, damn, this kid knows every word.
Right,
But
and to
yeah,
Watching Me Fall, that's a big one. That's a big one, 'cause
yeah,
that's an 11-minute song.
yeah. The show was great. 3 hour show, three and a half.
So you
So,
drive 500 miles, you see a 3-hour show.
mhm.
Did you
We
drive
drove
back
all the
that
way back.
same?
Yep. That's why we left at Faith. We left early during Faith because I had to get home. I know. But I said, Josh, we gotta beat the traffic.
I gotta call Robert. I'm calling Robert. Hello. What do you have to do? Dial 011? Anyway.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's you got to do what you got to do. But by that point, it was close to 11. We knew we wouldn't get home until sunrise, probably. But I think I got to my girlfriend's house at the time by about 6:45 that morning, and just crashed out. And then we had that one day off. Went home for a minute, grabbed some clothes, and then drove to West Palm the next day. And my whole pattern of seeing the band has largely been limited to 1 or 2 shows a tour throughout most of the last 25 years because that's what I was able to do, you know. But I mean, there's other stories where I had like nothing, no money in the bank, and I still was like scrounging up a way to do it. Like Reflections was a complete discussion of, well, you're buying a scout ticket, but you're getting one. And then if you stay with your friend and if you buy this flight that has 4 layovers, I got there. So,
That's great. So I just want to take a little break. Can somebody who's watching on YouTube tell me if you can see each other in the chat? Because I can't see it on my monitor, but I see people saying hello to each other. I see people on Facebook. Shirley Chan Voke, Shivo, Sandy Robinson. Hey, I got Allison already. Oh, and hello in Florence to Milena. Hi, I'm so happy you're here.
wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the good stuff, and we can toggle back and forth into being a Florida man
Mm.
who's into the Cure, because there was somebody on one of my channels that said she's from Orlando too, and she said no, now she knows 2 Cure fans from Orlando.
Where are they hanging out? There's so many of us. Just go to the right side of town. But
Right?
yeah, there's a bunch.
So I got all good on Facebook. Yes, I can see others chatting. Okay, thanks, David. Okay, great. So, Ben, how do you feel about telling like the general audience what the BBC2 show was in general? Or do you want me to do it?
Okay, so yeah, well, I mean, it was one of the two shows The Cure were playing this year around the time of the album launch. Uh, but it was the contest. It's a taping for essentially a BBC2 special or BBC6, one of the channels. It was a
What
1 hour
is
special.
what is the BBC?
The British Broadcasting Company, Commission, something.
I thought you were a
Love 'em.
big
Is it a corporation? I'm sure David Broom could tell us maybe some
BBC.
the baby. I love the BBC. I will say, like, part of it was when I saw that The Cure were going to do something with the BBC. I just thought, how rad is that? Because I used to hang out with this kid when in high school, and he only had like public access television, so he watched all those British programs that at the end it said Thames, like the little Big Ben picture in the back, the Benny Hill and all that stuff. But he told me about how the BBC worked and like the objectivity of the news and such. And he's actually gone now, passed away, but the BBC is like my primary like nighttime. I get into my car and I like eat a Taco Bell, or something like,
Of course, because you're
after I've
from
had a couple
Florida.
beers or something. Yeah, yeah. So you grab a Taco Bell and you pull up in the driveway on a school night. You're like, uh, listening because it's 10 minutes of like just the basics of the news.
Yeah.
And I grew up in this obnoxiously loud house blaring all the talk show pundits nonsense. So like I love BBC because it's the one place you can just tune in and go, oh, that's happening. Okay, thanks, and then you just walk. So I was excited that like I just thought it was a cool opportunity. I knew that they had a relationship with it because they would stream The Cure's like Glastonbury show plays on BBC, and they'd had specials. And I don't know if Top of the Pops was a thing at BBC, but like I knew that there was this long-standing relationship with like the Peel and all that. So that was a kind of interwoven history. But then in terms of getting there and doing it, that's all a completely different surprise. So
Right. So let's pause on that for a second because I want to say that our fellow fans on the chat are saying it's corporation, British
okay, thank you.
Broadcasting Corporation. I want to say hello to Neela Walden Hughes from County, Florida.
Yes.
Where's
All right.
Clay County?
Uh
All right,
Tampa-ish? I don't know.
All right.
I don't know. Yeah. In
And
fourth
also,
grade, I had a chance to memorize all the counties. I knew I could do it, but I didn't enter the contest.
well, you should because you're also I know you're a professor, right? You're a
Yeah,
teacher.
I'm an academic. Yeah.
I was gonna draw a thing of Florida and it just got so ugly that I don't know if I can do it. Whew. Anyway, again, so Florida is like this. It's a panhandle of the whole United States, and so for those Cure fans who went to Miami, Miami's down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the bottom over
So
here.
like I think so like the Panhandle,
Yeah.
Atlanta is like over here,
Yeah.
and then like you got Jacksonville, and then Orlando, and then Tampa, and then the Keys. I don't know. Hand Florida, it's not working. Reverse
Yeah.
mirror.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so also the BBC announcement and this Troxy gig. So there's a big difference between the two gigs. The BBC gig had tickets to give away.
Yeah, yeah, that's like the thing is and it was 500 seats specified, 500 people, UK residents may apply.
UK residents only. So that
UK
was the thing, is a
residents,
lot
yeah.
of us are staring at it going, what are we doing? We also have, oh my God, somebody from Kalispell, Montana. I love it. Oh, I love it. Oh, and Neela says it's her county's near Jacksonville.
Oh, sorry.
You're fired. So the Troxy show, both shows are very small. The BBC show was 500, but probably like 300, 350 after industry, because anything that's going to be aired on television is going to be, or radio or whatever the fuck we call it now, is going to be mainly industry people. Right? That's just a fact.
Yeah. I mean, that was the surprise to me is once I heard that, I thought, oh, I thought it was literally 500 people off the street. So,
No.
but, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not, I'm just saying.
There
Like,
were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were.
So most people from other countries, I don't know if people actually tried to get tickets anyway, but so you know, Ben and I were talking, and I was like, "Oh my god, how brilliant is it that like the one person I know who got into the show is from fucking Florida, is from Florida, from the United States." So how? Why don't we get into that?
Okay. Uh, yeah. So, like I said, they specified UK address, but okay. Well, to really back up, I had planned to go to England the first week of November anyway. My fiance and I and two other friends were supposed to go to a play, Doctor Strangelove, in Soho, and see Steve Coogan perform as Doctor Strangelove. We bought the tickets over a year ago. Things changed, and those friends fell out in the plans of the trip, and also new job and a sick cat caused us to cancel our trip. And
How's
within a few days,
Wait?
sorry,
How's the cat?
he's great. He's sleeping right next to me. He's made it well past the expiration date they gave him, but no, he's doing great now. He had kidney disease, but he bounced back. But that was the thing is everyday life and home made us just talk it out, and it was like it was already kind of pushing it because it's like I love to travel internationally, but it's exhausting, you know. So my fiance's like, well, for one, I'd be burning all my PTO, and it's a new job, and there were inconveniences for me as well. But so we canceled, and a couple days later, my friend in London, who we were primarily going to be staying near and hanging out with, we weren't going to stay with him because it's like us two and those two and a shared bathroom in a small London flat, and so that
Mm-hmm.
just added more, of course. So and then that the Blackpool thing came up, you know, where it was like everybody was talking about Blackpool.
Well, hold on.
And
We got to pause again. What the hell?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is Blackpool? What are you talking about?
Remember in the WhatsApp promotion of the Cure's new album, there was the Blackpool hype. And I don't know if Troxy or the BBC were announced before or after, but when they started hinting the release of the album, they did the projection of like the lights on the Blackpool Tower, and there was a bunch of internet rumors of could they be planning a show at Blackpool? Robert was born there. And so like everybody everybody was like the rumor mill was everywhere. It was like, oh my gosh. So immediately I write Chris and I go, I know we canceled the trip, but I might be seeing you sooner than later because the Cure are playing shows. So got to get out there to see old Bertie. And so he's immediately like, all right, Blackpool. I've never been. I said we don't know what's going to happen, what's going to unfold, but the hype was coming. Yeah. And then so I'm not saying anything at home yet, but then there's the BBC contest is announced, and I think Troxy was like announced maybe in tandem with it or right around the same time. But it
Well,
was like, all right, well,
actually, again, the friends. Hi, Ismail and James's thing was before the album announcement.
mm,
So, like, think of your history, like for somebody who's reading this in 100 years when
hmm
there's only the wealthy people are in their bunkers
hmm
and we're all dead because of the planet's burned out and somebody's really interested in these Cure archives. So again, when the new album was being released, the Cure had this whole interesting sort of press giveaway. They had a WhatsApp channel, they had posters, they started announcing these shows. It was like very slow leaks of information. Blackpool being just a flash in Blackpool, but then there was nothing else.
yeah, yeah. It was just the cryptic hype, and I knew just from the cryptic hype that something was brewing. So I told Chris, I said, I don't know what yet, but you might. I still might squeeze in a visit, and I missed him. So like a large part of it wasn't just Steve Coogan; it was I want to go see Chris, and we really were trying to hold on to making the trip work, even though our other two friends had backed out and everything. And finally, it was like, oh, okay, like it's just the money, everything. It's just not a good time to go. But then the cryptic cure gets me thinking, and I go, well, I still have a means. I still have my little quiver of Delta miles that I keep in case of things like this. All right. So like that's how 2018 happened at Hyde Park. They announced that before Christmas, and I always get the credit card that gives you the bucket of miles,
Mm,
and I always use those for cure shows. So so
right.
like that's like my way. Back in the day it was eBay, now it's credit card fees. So
Nice.
but I have it. And so I had the quiver of miles. It makes no sense. But then Chris was like, "Hey, just let me know, man. Like when you want to, if you're coming, just let me know." So then the BBC was announced, and I immediately, without even reading the rules, apply. Well, it says UK resident, so I'm like, "Well, duh, I've got Chris's address." So I apply under my name with Chris's address, and I said, "Chris, please apply to this. Let's see if we win." And within seconds, he's like, "Done. All right, I'm good." And then it just kind of we wait, and I think it was about a 2 week window of time to where we had to wait, and it was October the 10th. And on October the 10th, I don't get anything in my email,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, well, even if I did, I've reread the rules and the conditions, and I'm not eligible anyway. But I message Chris and I say, yo, can you check your email and check your junk mail, see if we got BBC tickets, because if you do and you don't know, and I find out in 3 months we won, I will kill you. And he
Well, but
doesn't.
you said here. I have actually a recording of something that you said.
Yes. Well, yeah, but this is after he says he doesn't see anything. See, this is when Chris
Oh,
checks his email and he goes, "No, Eric, I don't see anything." And then I message him this, and then the next day,
all right. Let's see if I can get it, ladies and gentlemen.
And the circumstances around it are all pretty bad. It would cost probably $2,000 to fly a Delta flight there. I'd have to miss Halloween. I have the miles to get there, but I don't want to use that many to get there. I would have to move a bunch of shit around at work, and the show is only about an hour and 20 minutes. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, if Chris won those tickets, he ought to dig up that buddy of his in the trench coat that we met in Camden Town that one time, Mark. Bring him.
uh, Mark, you're out there somewhere. I know you're out there, Mark. Hi.
Yeah, Mark is alive, by the way. When Ben
Yes, he
sent me
is.
this
Yes,
thing
just
and he said, "Dig up my friend," I was like, "Jesus Christ, you're telling your
it's
friend Eric to bring up a dead friend? What are we in a Cure song right now? Come on."
yeah, no, this guy Mark, like Chris sees him every few years just randomly in a pub and they talk and you won't see him again for quite time. But so that was what I responded. And I just spend the afternoon rationalizing it in these voice texts to Chris, like, ah, man, it would be so cool if that happened, but we're not going to make it. And then after, you know, after I go to bed that night, I wake up the next morning, and so this is October 11th, and I wake up, and Chris has sent me this message, and it says, after rationalizing all these reasons why I couldn't do it anyway, and he says, "I'm very sorry, Eric, but I did win tickets." And I,
What?
I just wrote, "Motherfucker," and I was like, "Don't give them away. I'm coming."
You know why? Hold on. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Just what is it that you want to do?
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride. And we want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely did some of that.
All right.
So,
So,
so yeah. And then that whole Monday, it was a Monday where he told me, and I said, "You haven't given the ticket away to anybody." "No, of course not. It's me and you." So okay. And I was like, and then like I cannot forget to lay in like how much anxiety starts building. So I was gonna go anyway. I'm like, my foot's in the door, and I call my significant other and I go, "Hon, what do I do?" Like, because we had Halloween plans. We were gonna go and do this like role playing murder mystery thing at a friend's house. We were supposed to dress as ogres, and I was like, I don't want to look like Shrek, like I got to be like a medieval looking ogre or something. I was doing all this research on how to be an ogre, and apparently I was being a real pain in the ass. So when I showed her Chris's message, she goes, "You're going!" Like, and she'd already said like the week before, she's like, "I know if you win this BBC thing, you have to go," but there was no expectation. It was just shit talk. And
right.
then it happens. So then I spend that morning. I go late to work. I book the
Well,
miles ticket. all
I'm
that.
gonna pause
Yeah.
again and say congratulations and to all the partners out there that put up with Cure fans with pre-existing
Yes.
conditions of having to go see this goddamn band, and
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
kudos to your
There's.
partner.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. That's love. You know. So it was quite nice just to see that support of just go. You're going. Now on the back end, she goes, "I'm glad he got the tickets because he's been such a pain in the ass about dressing up like an ogre."
I mean, clearly.
Yeah,
Clearly.
but I mean, I think my heart was in the BBC thing so much already. Like I was just, and also we hadn't redeemed. I don't think by that point we'd redeemed Troxy codes and all that stuff yet. That came later
Right.
or around the same time. So like I just was focused on, all right, so book the ticket, and I did that. But the whole day at work, like I was in a leadership meeting for 3 hours, and I was not processing anything. People were like, "Hey, you're getting into this complex thing," and I was like, "What?" Like I was just high, you know, like I was just in this daydream of like, "Oh my God, like this is what are the odds? How many people entered this contest, and also you got in because Chris applied." And I mean, he's seen the Cure once with me because I bought him the ticket. He wasn't like a fan. He just did it out of friendship. He was like, sure.
So when you were imagining being at the BBC, was it like this?
I I didn't expect. I knew it was a small venue, but no, I did not imagine me being that person in the black blazer up in the front. No, no, I did not. Yeah.
I had to slow it down just to find you.
Yeah. uh,
All right. Anyway, because when you were talking about imagining at work, I just had to cut to that for a minute.
even on slow mo, Simon is still bouncing around quickly.
I know, and you know,
Even
even on slow mo, the keys actually sound
Mhm.
in tune, which is weird.
Yeah. So yeah, the front row thing. All right. So
I know I jumped ahead. Anyway, so you're at
yeah, no,
work.
okay. So I'm at work. I can't concentrate, and then what's left is about another 2.5 weeks of just getting life in order to go. But in the back of my mind the whole time is you you still don't know. Like I was still worried that the BBC, I'd get there with an American passport, and I was afraid they were going to say, no, it was only open to UK residents. Bye.
Right.
But I didn't care at that point because I knew I still had it locked in to go hang out with my buddy. And I love going to London anyway.
Right.
So I was like, well, and I knew I was there long enough to see my friends that would make it to the Troxy show, regardless of getting in or not. So I was amped up to go. But I had
Right.
all these worries about getting there and being turned away. I was messaging Chris like, "Do you think they'll let me in as an American?" It's like the BB, you need like an ID and an address, but it says UK residents only. Like I was really sweating that, and he's like, "No, you're my +1. They're not going to care." And so yeah, by the time the flight's coming around, I didn't have a Troxy ticket. I didn't get the code, so I'm solely going to London for the BBC and to then run into you guys where I could find you. I was gonna. What I did was I planned for the last night of the trip. I was gonna stay near the Troxy and hang out and go to the after parties. I wanted to see Carl and just see who was around. And a
Sure.
lot of people, it's just like stopping them because this happens with me. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Diane? I'm Ben Crawley from Facebook." Like I just stop people on the street, like I recognize you. So I knew that would happen, and from there I went back to Heathrow. It was a quick trip, but so get to London. My flight had been canceled the day before, so I ended up like sleeping half the night in the airport on
Wait, what?
Saturday night.
Say that again?
Yeah, my flight to London got canceled and delayed. I had to go the
Oh
next
my
day.
God.
So
That would have
yeah, so
given
I
me
leave.
such
Oh
anxiety.
yeah, oh yeah. No, it was yeah.
Hold
So
on.
I left. Yeah,
You can't. Hold on.
planes,
Let's
trains, and automobiles, man.
pause. So the taping is on the 30th, and you're
Wednesday.
Wednesday. And when were you planning to fly and leave?
I was leaving Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
and Chris was asking me, when are you going to get in tomorrow? Because we could go make the Sunday roast down over in Ivy House, which is the pub near his house. And I said, I'll probably be there on time. Then the flight's delayed. I'm in the Delta Lounge, like just kicking around, figuring I'm still going to get there on time. But around 3 a.m., they canceled my flight. We were supposed to leave at like 10 p.m. or something, and they canceled it. So then I go to the stupid hotel. They put you up in a hotel. I mean, they take care of you and all that, but then it's like just killing time in Atlanta. And now it's Sunday afternoon. I'm not leaving until Sunday night.
Right.
And then I'm, and luckily, fine, I'm out of there. They ended up putting me on a, like Virgin Atlantic, whatever. They found a seat for me. I'm on my way. And so I arrive Monday morning, and I get to Peckham area by about 10 a.m. And then, so what I had done though is I said, well, so like I took all the money we'd spent on those Steve Coogan tickets,
Right.
and I managed to move the play to that Monday. So like I land in London, and then I'm supposed to go see Steve Coogan in the play that night. And the tickets, I had 4 tickets, I trade them in, and it only paid for 2 new tickets on the new dates. So Chris and I are going to go see Steve Coogan, and I just tell him, I go, yo, because he's asking me about the BBC and when do we want to get there Wednesday and all that. And I go, listen, for the sake of my anxiety and sanity,
Right.
we got to go to the BBC today and do some recon before Coogan.
All right. And so Richard Balia is asking, what is Peckham?
Peckham Rye is a neighborhood southeast London.
Okay, so that's where your friend is staying?
Yes, yeah, that's his area.
I mean, that's where your friend is living?
Yeah.
And where you're staying. And then who is Steve Coogan?
Steve Coogan is best known as Alan Partridge, BBC actor.
Okay.
My favorite parts of his repertoire would be Hamlet 2, Rock Me Sexy Jesus, and best musical weird inspirational teacher film ever made. So if you haven't ever seen it, you need to check that out. But
Nice.
Also Saxondale. I love Saxondale. So and that's about a washed up 70s roadie who toured with everybody except Led Zepp. And but now he's like this. He has to go to anger management. And he's a pest control guy. This is a BBC show. It was awesome, so good. So to see the Coog, and that's the other thing is this is bittersweet because my fiance and I, the first time we ever got to hang out, really talk, I was like, okay, so what I'm gathering from social media is that you like Steve Coogan as much as me,
Right.
and then so we started nerding out, and then that was the stinger of the trip is that she didn't get to go to that. That sucked.
Right.
But she also had said, if you're going, try to get that money applied to see Coogan while you're there too. That would be a dream.
Right.
She didn't know that night I'd also get to meet Steve Coogan briefly at the stage door and get his autograph. But anyway.
All right, you're getting ahead, bro. All right, we got to get back to Monday.
No, but let's go back to the BBC. That's the more important part. That's the Santa Claus piece. So, yeah, take a quick nap, have lunch in London, have a coffee, get up, shower, and start making your way to the BBC. And that just felt like so fun and special, and BBC.
Why?
Because it's like, I don't know. It's like, for one, I'd already scoped it out on Google Maps, and it's this just cool, kind of building, it's a corporate office, but it's like right there in the heart of London with all that sort of white stonework, and it's just classic downtown. This, it wouldn't be important to any passerby for any reason other than you're headed there and it's exciting. It's
so
because
it was exciting for you because you like the BBC and that you had landed in you made it, right? You made a bunch of decisions.
The anxiety was still on fleek though. It was still pumping because
fleek, that's such a that's a fucking
made fun
Gen
of for using
Z.
that word all the time.
Is that Gen Z or millennial, everybody?
It's 5 years old. But
I think it's important.
Is still there.
Yeah, I think it's important to say because this is something that I like to sort of punctuate with what I do is there are a lot of people that could have, even though tons of fans really wanted to go, but you can talk yourself out of anything. it is very easy to talk yourself out of anything. And I would say it's easier to talk yourself out of something than to do it, because to try means you're open to failing. You're open to the flight being canceled, spending the money, being turned away at the BBC, whatever. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? There's a million and one reasons. So at this point already, it's like you're fleeking in your anxiety, which may also have to do with the age we're at. For me it does, but you're also excited because you're there.
Yeah. I mean, this was not my first time to London, so no matter what, I was going to make the most of going to London again. I have plenty of things I like to do when I'm there and new stuff I want to do. But I was just worried because there still was no guarantee. Before I even got on the plane to go, I'd been tipped off by you and one or two other people, I think, that the industry night thing was something to be concerned about. That this rumor of it's industry night, so even if it says 500 seats, there's industry people on a list, and they're going to take up some of the seats. And some of the hype was Blur had fans like battering ramming the door of the BBC. Like this whole thing about Blur had fans crawling all over and busting in, and I'm just sitting there hearing these stories like, dude, I know Cure fans, and I imagine that there's going to be the 500 that got the ticket there and another 5,000 hoping to get in. And I got to be there. Like, how early do I need to be there? Because apparently the rumor was that people were camping out the night before for Blur. And I'm sitting there like, I'm not doing that. I don't play that. I've been to the front row in a handful of Cure shows without having to sleep anywhere or
Right.
have a blanket or none of that. So I just play my luck, but I need to get in. I mean, I was dedicated to get in. So prior to even getting there, I was mapping out, like typing into Google, like where do you go for BBC theater line? And I'm looking, like I'm walking around the road on the little Google like arrow, like kind of finding my way around the building. And I'm like, okay, it's that door. I'm pretty sure, but I'm still going to go and find out. And then I see that they have a cafe on the outside, like, and so just to get there and be like, all right, I've made it this far, feels good, but I'm still not like there, like, and Chris is just, he's so patient with me because we've traveled all over the world together. We met in Australia uh, 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been to the Baltics, we've been to Scandinavia, like, um, we've traveled together. He knows me, so he's just like, sure, Eric, we go to a recon at the BBC, no worries, and he's just, he's lived in London most of his adult life, so he's just, oh, we'll go here, we'll take the train there, whatever. So
Right.
uh, he's just dealing me. So we get there, and it's like, all right, here we are. And then there's a security guard out front. The first guy I ask, I go, yo, I got tickets for Wednesday, BBC Theater. What door do I go to? And this guy, the first guy was like, that one, but he didn't speak very good English. So then I'm like, well, that wasn't good enough. Like I'm going to ask another guy. We're kind of lurking around. Um, just yeah. Oh, there's a part of it I'll leave out just because there's no way to go into it. But um, the next guy I go to, I say,
This is the security
hey,
guard.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we okay. I'll say it. There's a dude on the BBC. I didn't know it at the time, but there's this really unfortunate fellow that's like got like the essentially the facial deformity, like the Elephant Man, I guess, and like he walked by and I didn't think anything of it, but I told my friend later that night, like I was like, I saw this dude at the BBC, and like it was just really weird. He walked in, everybody knew him and all that, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's this guy on the show. He's such a wonderful." Anyway, that's the part I was going to leave out. But anyway,
Okay.
so I saw a celebrity walking in,
Right. 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 Right.
but then I walk up to that security guard when he was done talking with him, and I say, uh, "Hey, so I just want to map things out here because I have tickets for that Cure show on Wednesday." And I just want to make sure I know the right door and what to expect. And the guy was like, "Oh, wow, you've got tickets to that show. Oh, that's fantastic." And it was just, he just had this like twinkle in his eye where, and he was like, "Well, no, you just go to the door right around on the side of the building there." And I said, "Okay, well, listen, man, like there's rumors about Blur having like thousands of people bashing the doors in and all this. He's like,
Right, right,
oh,
right.
blah, it was a complete mess. And then he gets into like staffing mistakes and how they were printing tickets for people they shouldn't be giving out and how they denied the band entry. And like, he was just telling us maybe too much.
Right.
But and then he was like, well, where are you from? And I was like, I got tickets because my friend entered, but I asked him to enter and I came from Florida. He's like, whoa. And he was just like, that's just unbelievable that you would come all this way. And he's like, that's going to be a lovely time. And I was like, well, I'm still not in yet. So I don't know how lovely it'll be. I can't miss this.
Right,
So
right, right.
now we're trying to figure out like, where do you get coffee and sandwiches and how early I should be. He's like, oh, just get here a few hours early. It really isn't going to be anything like that Blur show. And I'm still like not believing it. So we decided to head down there based on what he told us. Like we were going to head down there around 3 p.m.
Right.
But
So
he
now
just,
it's now it's just
it's
now
Monday.
it's Monday,
Yeah.
but then you on Tuesday? No, Wednesday you had
It was Wednesday. Yeah. So we were to go back. We had a day to just
day off.
mess around.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so we did our recon, knew the door to go to, and he kind of told us the process also. He's like, they'll have you line up and you want to get a decent spot in line. And he's like, if you come out 3:30, see who's at the door. And then you'll know if you need to get in line or go around the corner to the bar, have a beer and pop back. And so he was just kind of giving us that. But then he told us a lot of trivia about the BBC, like how they got the largest organ pipes in Britain, but they lost the organ during World War
Right,
II.
right, right.
And then this radio tower here was the first ever broadcast a color TV signal across the wherever. And he was just like way more informative, kind of like like that Chris Farley guy in Wayne's World, the security guard. He's like, we're gonna be here, there, and we're gonna go to Chicago.
I mean, as
Like,
any security guard would be. That's why they're security guards. But anyway, so let's cut to Wednesday. So you get in line.
Okay. Yeah. So we get there, and of course, like I'm like, man, I hope when we get there, there's not already 3,000 people. And we get there, and there's like nothing. You see the Trans Am truck, which is the European Tour Cure loading truck, right? That company, the lorries. And so they had one lorry.
There was nobody in line at 3:00.
There were probably, when we first got there around 3:30, there was probably 10 people in line.
Wow.
And they were just sitting.
Wow.
And
okay.
yeah. And I scope it out and I was like, all right, Chris, let's go to Pret because I want a coffee. And like, we don't have Pret in Florida, and I love Pret a Manger. So like, awful, but I eat there like crazy. So I'm like, let's go to Pret and get a coffee and a sandwich. Then let's go to the Cock Tavern down the street because that's the closest bar and the name. Got to go. So, but when we got there, David Broom is already pacing back and forth.
David Broom, who just left the chat. That's too bad.
That's a bummer. But yeah, David Broom's there, and I go, Chris, I met that dude in New York. Like he was at a table with Arusha after the Madison Square Garden show, and I have a picture. He's like sitting right next to me. So then I walk up and I was like, hey man, what's up? I met you in New York. He's like, I don't remember. And I'm like, we have a picture together. But then we start talking and I was like, did you get a ticket? And he was like, oh, no. And then there's like these two guys with like homemade laminated signs that say like begging for one Cure ticket or need one Cure ticket, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
With like, some like cut paste Robert head on it, and I'm like, kind of like, well, they like I kind of revealed that we had tickets, but then I immediately felt like such a dick because all these people that I thought would maybe have them that were kind of standing around, none had them, and they're just like hoping for a miracle, and I'm sitting there like, all right, I'm gonna stop telling people I have one. I'm just gonna get out. But David and I just exchanged like handshakes and reacquainted ourselves for a sec, and then he was like, oh, I just came down from Manchester to like, see. And I'm like,
yeah, see, Dave, that's what you get for leaving the chat. No, just kidding. All right, so you get your beer, you get your coffee, you're back in line.
And
I'm
so
curious,
we got back in line around 4:30.
Yeah, I'm curious about. Well, what I was going to say was, I'm curious about like getting in line. Was there just one central line to get in?
It's those gates, the little metal, kind of bar gates that they line up for. It was probably like they just had like this kind of like an 8-foot strip along the building that was gated off to where to get in there and stand in the line, they had a guy that would come and just make sure you really had a ticket.
Right.
And then you would stand wherever it was you found your spot, and then the line just started growing.
Right.
And I mean, so we were like numbers 36 and 37 in line. We found out later because they give you a little sticker.
Right. So let's get into like actually getting into the venue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So lovely conversation while we waited, and then around 6 they started giving us the stickers. We get in there, and maybe it was even after. It's fuzzy now. I think the show started at 8, but once we got processed and in there and wristbanded, and to my surprise, they had a affordable bar with decent food for all the guests to BBC Productions when you finally get in. And, you know, they have like all the Doctor Who stuff in the hallway. They've got like a Dalek and pictures of Spike Milligan on the wall. Like there's just a lot of that history. And I'm not that in depth of a BBC fan to where it's like I even knew what some of that was. But I mean, of course, I'm taking pictures, and, you know, my other British friends, I'm like sending, you know, the inside show. They're like, oh, the Goon Show. Lovely. I love it. You know, so there's that. But I was surprised because as a venue, like to bring people in that want to, that really they just hand these tickets out for any event, if any kind of TV show, recording, whatever. And they'll bring you in like earlier if the weather's bad, but then the bar itself was just like, I was just so impressed that it wasn't $20 for a Guinness, you know, like it wasn't these corporate venues in America where you just get bled dry for everything. It was an affordable Guinness. Even Chris was like, I mean, it was an 8-pound Guinness and it was 7-pound Guinness. I'm like, who cares? That's fine. You know, that's what it costs in Florida, if not more, for a Guinness. So no big deal. But, you know, just like tastefully done. And then they had staff that were just kind of walking around, and they wristbanded us in staggering groups. And so we just hung out. There was this couple that we had started. They weren't a couple, but it was this guy and his female friend, and they were chatting with us the whole way into the line. So we just sat and had the drink with them, and then they started kind of processing us after another hour passed or so. But it was just fun to like hang out. And there were a couple people that like, there was like two people I recognized from like other circumstances that I was talking to while we were there. But it was mostly Chris. We're in. And I still am wound up. I'm still like, we're still not in the theater. We're still like not, you know, like anything can happen. Like I really was just like, and I was just processing. It was like all this anxiousness that, like it was like this dream was coming true. This materialization was happening, but I still wasn't through the door. You know, it was, and then so they have this little announcement that comes out. It's like, for all those with a yellow wristband, please go to the entry door. And I had, you know, pink wristband. So I'm like, oh, wonder what that is. But I assumed that was the industry BBC folk.
Yeah, I'm going to pause again because somebody, first of all, Richard Belia says your Southern London accent is hilarious. And I think it sounds like a fucking Australian accent. And people in the chat are saying, wasn't there 2 recordings? And I think the long and the short of it is that, like Alison Humphreys is saying, there was a BBC 6 session, like appeal session first, which I don't think anybody was in except for maybe some industry people and guests and stuff. But then your lot was in, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
That was what was unclear. Talking to a fellow in the line, he had said something like, well, they've actually got 2 tapings. And he suggested that maybe our group was only half of the 500, but he wasn't sure because there was a second taping. Now, later in an interview, Robert said that the day started excruciatingly early at 4 p.m. So we're now seeing a show that starts at, I think, 8 p.m. and ends at 9:15-ish. So they did something in that 4 hours. And there was the House Stevens interview, and then Joe Wiley was recording her bit at the beginning of our show. So like, to me, it's nebulous. I don't know, because I tried to track down the Stevens portion, and I don't know if they just played all the same songs for some sort of private recording, or
I'm just this is what it looked like. There she is. And you said that this went on. She'd had to do this 4 times.
She came out and they had a guy with like a prompter standing in front of me. At this point, I'm third behind the rail.
Okay.
So once they open the doors, we come in behind the yellow wristband folks, and I'm 3 people behind the rail, and then they come out and we're the magical part that really helps my anxiety come down is that once I'm in the room and third behind the rail, an MC comes out to tell us how this is going to go, and he says Joe Wiley's going to come out and read from the prompter, do her spiel for 3 or 4 tries to, just introduce the show, and we're going to take the best one of that. He gave us the rules about you can use your camera phones and whatever. That surprised me. But then that little magical bit happens, and the MC says, now, security told us that 2 days ago, a guy from Florida was coming around here and trying to learn all the ins and outs of the building because he'd won tickets and he wanted to make sure he got in. Is that guy here? And I'm like, oh, and then everyone just in the theater turns to me and he's like, the lovely, what's your name? And I'm like, Eric. And he's like, Derek. And I'm like, Eric. And he was like, oh, welcome, Eric. And I was just like, and I looked to the guy that I'd been, across the room that we were in line with all the time. I was like, what the hell is that all about? But like that.
Well, I wanna pause and go back to that. So you're in the theater. They're probably like, all right, everybody. Like, did they tell you how to fill in the space, or did you all just like come in, or how was that?
They staggered the yellow wristbands in, and those people just took their spots mostly around the front and on the edges. And then pink wristbands went in a few minutes later, and it was only probably 50, 100 people, so we kind of filled in. After that, I don't know if there were green wristbands or something, some other group. I heard something about like some folks didn't make it in and they had to watch it on the TVs in the bar.
Right. So
I'm glad that wasn't me.
Okay, so this is really important. This is like the Florida man story. Is that you're in the room. The cameras are not on. You're not taping yet. You're standing there. You see the Cure's. I can't play the stuff yet, but you see the stage and you hear. Do you see somebody come out on stage, or do you hear something over the loudspeaker?
No, a guy, like a young fellow, came out in like a 5-panel hat, and he's the MC, and he's just kind of greeting the group, and that's how he starts explaining how this is going to work. Okay,
so the MC comes out, and he's just warming up the crowd, getting you ready to be on TV, basically telling you the yeses and the nos and whatever. Right. And then let's get back to what he said next.
And so then he just takes this aside, and he says, 2 days ago, there's this guy from Florida, and he was asking security all these questions about getting in, and did he make it? Is that guy here tonight? And that's when I was like, like kind of like self-conscious at that point, like, oh shit, and then he was like, that's lovely. But then the whole room was like, Florida, damn, like, whoa. And all these folks, like the yellow wristband, like I had asked one guy, like, what's the yellow wristband? Are you work here, industry, whatever? They didn't say. He was very kind of reluctant to tell me, but they all just smiled like, whoa, like, Florida, you came that far? And then like that kind of gave me a privilege a little later on, which was, 3 songs in, a woman from Glasgow had to go to the bathroom and she was on the rail. And she just turned around and said to me, I'm going to the bathroom and you've come all this way. Why don't you just take my spot on the rail?
Okay.
And
let's pause right there. So again, just to drive it home, and maybe I can get some audio out of this. I think it's pretty fucking cool that, you're finally in, you've made it, a flight was canceled. Your plans were canceled. You're spending all this money, but you're with your best friend. You did your recon. You met a nice security guard. You're in the fucking place. You're finally there. Mm-hmm. And then the guy says over, as he's introducing, like, hey, is there some guy here from Florida? Like, what the fuck? That is so wild and crazy.
Yeah, it was magical. I like want to write a letter to the BBC and just like thank them, but also point out like the security guard. Like he was like the best part. Like he had such a good sense of humor. He told us about, like secret bars by DJs of the past. Like they'd have be drinking while on the air, and he was just such a cool guy. I also learned the term Camberwell carrot from him. I can't forget that. He's like a guy with this Rastafarian was smoking a Camberwell carrot while playing the decks. So yeah, that guy was just a trip. I gotta let them know.
So I'm gonna have to let this play because I don't know how to make this like I can't fast forward. Here she is again.
Mm-hmm.
So she did this take 4 times, and while we're getting through her, the people in the chat are saying that there was 2 tapings, I guess, and
Okay.
one is on YouTube. So we're gonna have to. So maybe they did it without the audience, and they probably did it for clear sound, or who the hell knows.
Yeah.
Martin says, yes, the first show without any audience was on YouTube, a really good show. Or was that the Peel session? I don't know, man. I'm going to have to... It doesn't
I
really
don't
matter,
know.
but...
I don't know how they could lay the recording over the crowd show taping and get it all synced up, but that's not my specialty. So it's mystery to me. All I know is I got in. I was there. It was awesome. You know.
Yeah, okay, so at first you're in the 3rd row, which was like, I don't know the order of songs, but so take us to the front row.
Okay, so I think Alone plays, and I'm still in the 3rd row, and then Pictures of You, and I want to say song 3 at this point. I'm drawing a blank, but I think around the 3rd song that unfortunate lady had to go to the bathroom, and I would have. I mean, I would have not given up that spot if I were her. So, but then, I mean, as I was invited to the 3rd row, like no one, it's not like, you're at some Cure show in, Chicago or something where everybody's elbowing each other and they want to get in the front and they're just disregarding all the rules. Everyone was like, oh yeah, no, by all means, Florida guy, come to the front, like have this space. You've come this far. And everyone was just smiling and just like, yes, this is for you. You take it. And so then that's when it was the, I mean, at that point, the anxiety is gone, and it's just this euphoria of, holy fuck! Like, can you believe what you're seeing and where you are? And I mean, I was close enough to see. I was like, oh, bummer! I see the whole set list already. I already know what they're going to play next. Like, it's right there in front of me. I'm, looking at. I mean, I'm right dead center in front of Robert Smith, and they don't make eye contact, which was great. I'm happy they did. They all kind of stare out above everything, but also later on he said that he is short-sighted or nearsighted, whichever one it is that you can't see up close. So it would probably make him freeze up if he did see you.
Right.
But seeing him that close up, I mean, I've been to the rail. I've been to the Beacon when we all could run up to the front at the encores. Like, I've been close. But this was like 8 feet, and they're like on the same level of that you're standing. And I mean, so many things are going through my head. I'm like, I heard he was 6'1", but I don't think he's 6'1". And what I think what started going through my mind, as much as I'm singing, and I was so self-conscious about filming them at this point, because I'm in the front row and I'm like camera, like just an idiot. So I'm filming them, like holding the camera, like lower than my hand is on my chest now. I'm like holding it like at the rail height. And I'm like thinking, there's no reason to record whole songs because you're going to have the BBC taping of this for as long as that's going to last. And just get a couple pictures and just soak this up because there's only probably now 45 minutes left. And I'm just, I guess like, the difference is that because they weren't 50 feet tall on a screen and all the lights and effects, this was like watching them play in a backyard or like a garage. I mean, it was so tight and small. And, they have this little projector screen where they're playing some of the scenes from like Beachy Head for Just Like Heaven, or the Earth turning, or the moon for like End Song and such. but it was super, super condensed. And I mean, they say intimate, but it was fucking intimate. And
Mm.
I, it's hard to explain the feeling. I mean, I don't think I have an accurate comparison. I wouldn't say, oh, it was like standing before God. No, it was not that. I, I just started to really think about these guys. I've followed them for like, over 25 years now. I've seen them in every capacity I've been able to see them. And this awesome opportunity has opened up. And like, I was able to see their humanity, like so up close. That, that really worked me up. Like that was like, I mean, when I was 20, they were like turning 40, and now I'm 45 and they're 65. And like, I mean, and they sing, where did it go? Like that lyric too. Like I nearly started crying during Alone because it was like, yeah, like I'm looking back on my life trajectory
Yeah.
too. And it's like, holy shit, and I'm just like, I love these guys, but also I can't believe like they still play for us. Like they're still playing, they're still touring, and like, and I just had to suspend. It was, I think the impact, all of the influences it's had on me were all just churning. And I mean, it's for those who don't know me. I mean, like my academic interests have largely been inspired. Like my interest in British poetry, existentialism, things I studied in graduate school came from The Cure. Like Albert Camus. Who the hell is that? Read his book. Oh, I want to take a whole class on this now. And somehow I get paid to teach topics that I learned from like Robert Smith and English culture. And so it was just, I had to kind of pin it and be like, just absorb it and enjoy the music now, because this is, it was like a freaking religious experience, and
I can
it
hear
was
it in
just
your
before.
voice.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, I'm still coming down from it, what, 3 weeks later,
Yeah.
almost a month later. And I, I don't know. It was just so wild to see them as the humans they are, like right in front of you and just doing their job. I think the most beautiful moment of the whole show, two of them. One, watching Jason looking at Robert while Robert's having a drink, and Jason's making sure Robert's ready before he clicks his drumsticks and goes into another song.
Mm.
But I think the even better moment that I loved was watching Perry and Reeves and Robert all doing the eye contact, being close up enough to seeing them doing the eye contact to make sure that they all start to strum their guitars at the right points in end song, and like
Mm.
layering the sounds and getting it right, and just those kinds of like coordinated bits. I mean, I noticed that all the way back to my first shows during the Dream Tour. Like, even though I'm not musically inclined one bit, um, watching this sort of like huge, this maestro, really, it's like Robert's sort of this maestro who, even the Dream Tour, he'd like look at his sound guy and be like, you know, he
Yeah.
has these like little like bits where he's listening to everything. It's watching an artist at work, and artists and plural. And I think that's the credit they deserve, is that like they were the first artists I ever really studied in depth. And I went on to study so many others, but like they're still living, and they're still, like making. And so, yeah, my whole approach to understanding aesthetic and everything else is really all churned and started by them.
And one thing that you said to me at one point when you were describing to me privately about being so close to The Cure, and you were right in front of Robert Smith, and it was like you said something about his like childlike
Oh gosh, yeah, that. I
quality.
mean,
And what is that?
yeah,
What does that mean? Can you elaborate, please? What's the story, by the way?
it's because part of my admiration of them is that, I mean, Robert, as a young man, said something like, "I'll just make music, and if I have to live on the dole and make music, I'm fine with that. Like, it's all about just making music." Yeah, he says it in 10 Imaginary Years, I believe. And so, and they were always an inspiration for me to reject convention.
Yep.
and to, I mean, live by your own rules.
Yep.
So even though I have this professional job and stuff, I try to sleep in as soon as this vacation starts. I'm up all night and sleeping into the day. Uh, I just I love that they just really. I mean, it's a dichotomy. You run this multi-million-dollar business with millions of record sales, and you do it pretty much yourselves, and yet you refuse to conform. You find your own way. Fucking excellent. Like, and I guess I don't know if I think there's incidents in my life that show I was of a similar train of thought, but I also felt validated to keep doing it into my adulthood and say, I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to play by these rules, or I'm not going that route because I see success in that pathway, like it's just, but I think, but what's more specific to your question, seeing Robert, he is this big kid. He is the big kid we all wish we could hold on to be. And being up close to him, it's like you are that big kid still, and yet you're 65, and like, and as soon as I know it, I'll be 65, and I just want to hold on to that kid too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote at the end of 10 Imaginary Years. It says, my motivation is to try and make the cure not more popular, but to harden up the whole thing so we are untouchable. Then we reach the point of becoming important, yet still odd. We will never be accepted, but we'll never go away. That is perfect. Mm-hmm. We'll never be accepted, but we'll never go away. I kind of feel like that a little bit. Yeah. So, yeah, I think what you're saying about that child, that playfulness, right, with the cure is something that I think even when I saw, I'm going to just cut right into the Troxy and like seeing like what's his name? Pedro Pascal dancing up in the fucking rafters. And hi to everybody that is joined late. I'm so happy that there are people here.
How many people are in right now? I'm just curious.
5,000 million, 10,000 kajillion times 100. No, I don't know. I can't see, how many.
Well, I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody just joining to hear this because it's astounding that it's interesting on a wide enough scale. It's great.
Let's continue. Don't be offended if there's like 4 at the end.
I don't give a fuck. Yeah, I don't care.
Because I do think, again, it goes back to what we're talking about right now. It's like, why do you, and you and I have talked about this privately, it's like, why do you do art? Why do you do anything? Yeah. If you're authentic to yourself, you do it for you. And that's why we love The Cure. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes a song like End Song even that more powerful, because we all, if we're lucky, we all age. It all goes, but if you can hold on to that essence, that sort of childlike wonder and awe, that's something. And so I think that's really beautiful that you felt that when you were up close in the front row.
Yeah. It reminded me also, like when I was younger and I had longer hair, I wish I could find my old driver's license pic where I didn't comb it and it's like, coming off to the side. But I had I had bought a pair of skateboarding shoes that were white leather and nobody bought them. They were on sale. That's because they were white and they're ugly. So I spray painted them black. And of course they're like the puffy tongue kind of thing. And my hair is all uncombed. And I got into the van with my brother and his kids when they were like really little. And at some point later in the day, my little nephew Riley was like, "You're weird. You don't comb your hair and you paint your shoes." It's like, but I'm like in my late 20s at the time, but it was because I want to, because it's me. It's what I want to do. It's painted shoes look fine, but it's like it's nice to also know that there's people in the world that also feel that.
Just what is it that you want to do?
Oh, this again.
Well, we want to be
free. I
want
to paint my shoes.
We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride. And we want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. and we want to get loaded.
Yeah. I pulled that scene because when I try to, there's so many Cure interviews that affected me when I was a kid in the 80s, mainly like Les Enfants du Rock. And I always have this image of Robert saying, we just do what we want to do. And we just don't go, you know, and when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, we do what we want to do, man. We're not going to abide by your bullshit. And, you know, Robert's there teasing his hair and Simon's hair is like coming out to wherever and all this like beautiful, you know, weird androgynous kind of creatures. And I was just like, but now every time I try to look up an interview that I'm thinking of, I just think of this Peter Fonda thing in what is it, The Wild Bunch?
I think it's The Wild Angels. It's been a while since I rented that a long time ago. So I haven't seen that clip in some time.
Stephanie says, I'm in Orlando, Florida right now. I'm here to support our home soccer team. I can't even read. In the playoffs against Orlando City. Go Atlanta.
Oh, wow. That's right down the road.
Okay, so you're having your moment and you're halfway through the gig or what happens? Like, how does it end?
Well, the MC at the beginning had said what they're going to do is they're going to play for about an hour, and that's the taping. And then they're going to take a quick break, and they'll come out and play a few more songs for you since you've all come this way. And so that's how it went. You know, they did. I think they finished up. It was like In Between Days, Just Like Heaven, Deep Green Sea, end song, and then a couple minutes break. And then they came out and played some pop hits. You know, Why Can't I Be You? Let's Go to Bed, I believe. The set list is such a blur now. I mean, it's kind of just doesn't matter. It was was eating it up.
Right.
But when the show, I mean, it was just, I was just nerding out, just sitting there. I showed a friend of mine, I told a guy I don't see very often, I saw him the other night, and, you know, the locals around here are just kind of like, tell him, like my friend bartending, she's like, tell him what happened to you. And so I tell the whole BBC story and he's a musician, so I'm like, dude, you won't believe how close I was, you know, and I'm showing him the pictures, and he's like, let me see the pedals. And I was like, oh yeah, obviously you'd want to see that. So I was close enough to have like total pictures of all of Robert's pedals. And my friend just goes, yeah, it's pretty 1986. Like, he's like, those are all he's like, I'm not surprised. He's like, I'm really not surprised. They're not using anything really beyond. Those are all Boss pedals. Like he just was like thinking he'd see some like, you know, missing link or something. He's like, no, it's pretty much standard to the era. Okay. And it wasn't the just for anyone who cares, I don't think that was the extent of the pedal setup. It was like 6 on one side and 3 on the other. It was not the extension, you know, like tour pedals. Because on a tour job, I've been in Madison Square Garden the day of a Cure show when I was going that night, and they take all the kids on a tour of the garden. It's totally boring. And sorry, but it is. Here's the sweaty locker room. Like, it's totally ridiculous. But we were able to go into the venue, and there's a security guard just like pacing back and forth. And I did like, you know, peeping Tom pics of like all the pedals then. So the elaborate show of a regular tour versus this, it was quite stripped down, I guess. But yeah, that's just a funny experience to think back on. Like, you know, I'm here about 8 hours before they get here, and I'm looking at all their junk, and there's this guy pacing back and forth to make sure it doesn't get stolen, I guess. Or
yeah, no, I want to use guys.
Yeah, there are people, I think. But so yeah, the show. I mean, it comes to its end, and you know they do thank you, and then people kind of come out of the woodwork, and I'm standing there. I'm at the rail still, and I'm like. I was just taking this deep breath, like, holy shit, like it's already over. You know, like all this way, and I finally got here, and I'm just so like tickled because I'm just like, Chris did this, and like, it all came out fine. You know, like it all happened fine, and like, but I'm just like so blown away by these circumstances that let it happen. And I didn't have much time to really like, you know, wallow too much in those feelings because then the BBC staff people or whoever they were, they're all like, "Thank you for coming such a long way. That's so awesome, Florida." Like, and I'm just kind of like, why is that such a big deal? Like,
They have
I'm
it.
like, well, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. Like, I'm like, it's my pleasure to come here. I love this. But like, and then one fellow comes up and he was like, and I'd been standing next to him and I guess his wife and his son, and he was like, hey, mate, thanks for coming. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Oh no, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Oh, that was a weird dropout.
Do you see me?
Yeah,
Okay.
The Cure Forever, that's Carl. Can't stay just popping in to say hi, Eric. It's great. We love Eric. He's the fucking best. Always a pleasure. We'll watch later. Leanie has said, best show ever. Hello, Bub. Hello again to Shirley. There's a lot of other people that came on. And Joanne, I'm sorry to hear that you're sick. I'm sorry for people that we've bored to death who have left. But yeah, I just wanted to say hello since I don't know what just happened, but anyway,
Yeah, me
you're
neither.
back.
Okay, so we're live and we're okay. All right. Yeah, this one fellow, the BBC folks just kind of all came out appreciative that some guy had come all this way. Now, unbeknownst to me at that moment, I don't think anyone had an idea until maybe Al Robinson the next day said the figures that 180,000 people had applied for tickets. And
Wait, what?
then yeah, Al Robinson, Reeves's Tech on Instagram posted a picture, and I'm in the picture, and he wrote, something like 180,000 people applied for tickets to this BBC show, which I think is why the BBC was so blown away of the Florida thing, because usually it's they're just giving tickets to random passersby to bring them in for random tapings of BBC programs, and The Cure brought them all that publicity, and yeah, there you go. And so
nobody's gonna be able to see this, but it does.
yeah, no,
It does.
I'm subdued at that point. It's before the show, but I saw him come out and take the picture, and I was like, he gave me a funny story about Al that I want to throw in for Al's sake. Al posted during the pandemic. He was posting.
Al. Oh, sorry again. Who is Al for people who once were dead and all and
Yes, Al Robinson, I believe is his name, and he's Reeves guitar tech.
and Reeves
And during
is
the Reeves is guitarist, plays for
okay.
The Cure.
Okay.
And formerly with David Bowie as well, and Tin Machine and Doom Dogs. And so that's Al, yeah. And so just props to Al. During the 2022 tour, I also flew to London the day of the Cardiff show, and then hauled ass to Cardiff that day, checked into my hotel, slept for 15 minutes, and went to the Cardiff show. And after the show, Al was out, and he had come down to the front to like greet someone he knew. But I just kind of turned into this like weirdo, and I was like, Al, and he's just like, who's that? But during the pandemic, he posted so many pictures of like his walks in the countryside, which just made me dream to be back to England and just be anywhere. And he also all of them were kind of teasing that something was in the works. And that gave, I think, me, but millions of others, a sense of hope that shit was going to go away eventually and we would get back to some sort of normal. But more than anything, I think the pandemic really ramped up and hyped up the hope. Like, I think many of us were sitting there thinking, God, when this is all over, like, what would be the most fun thing to do? And it would be to go see The Cure again. So, I mean, when they announced that tour, I was up at like 5 a.m. buying the tickets that went on sale. And Wembley 3 nights in a row was a dream for me. So, like, I always wanted to do the Wembley trio night thing. So, like, I made that happen. But so anyway, I'm back in Cardiff. The show's over, and I was like walking to someone, I'm like, ow, and I just he comes over, and I was like, hey, I'm so and so from Instagram, and you posted all that, and he's like, he can't process it all. He's like, he just like opens.
He's like, and another one.
He just opens my hand up and puts a Reeves pick in it, and he closes my fingers. He's like, he just like, good one, mate, and he just walks away. And I was like, and I was like.
He'll never wash his hand again.
I was just like, I was like, and then I tried to like go back or something and like just like try to get a selfie or something. And security was like, "Get the hell out of here, man. We're done. We're done. Bottles and cups all over the floor. Just go away." But I never. That always stood out to me. That meant a lot. That's in the curio cabinet now with other cure bits to pick. So.
Yeah, Eric is Eric. Al is a Eric's all right, but Al Al's a cool cat for sure. Something I have in my notes when we're so you're at actually, you know what? Let's go back. So you're at the rail and you're about to leave, and Al says hello.
No, Al didn't say hello. Sorry, it was Al just shot that picture. Anyway,
okay.
Leaving Al, and Al, I didn't interact with him at all during the BBC. Some gentleman walked up to me, and he just said, "Thank you for coming," and he shook my hand, and I said, "Oh no, it's my pleasure." He's like, "It's just thanks for coming all this way," and I was like, "No big deal." And I said, "Do you work at the BBC?" And he goes, "No, I work for the Cure." And I said, "Oh, what do you do?" And he's like, "I work on their re-releases and stuff." And I was like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, Joe Black." And I'm like, "I'll have to Google him when I get home, I guess." But anyway, like, as if it matters, like, I give him my work business card. Like, "Oh, nice to meet you." Here, what, you got to email me at work? It was like a dork move, but I was just like, "Oh, it's my pleasure of coming." And yes, this is the guy that came from Florida. Here's my info. I don't know if that'll ever matter, but there you go.
It should be a B-side if if they did B-sides, but I kind of want to get into another thing we talked about offline, but I don't know if it's a good time to say it, because you were saying how you were in this like such emotion, but then you were leaving and trying to like just hold on to it without getting too much in your head. But as you're talking about these people at the BBC saying, "Oh my God, that's so great that you're there," I think about two things. One, I think about all the other fans who do this all the time. And again, part of my origin story is people be like, "You're going to go see The Cure twice? What are you, crazy?" And little did they know that like it's a thing. Like this is sort of a way of life, I guess. I'm going to tie it to something a little more heady, because I always find it troublesome. I'm like, why do people have such a hard time with this pilgrimage? Because a pilgrimage for any reason that is your own is usually a good thing. There's going to be bad stuff, which we will get to if we don't bore everybody to tears. But we talked about Malcolm X. We talked about, you talked about a radical transformation.
Yeah. I was hesitant to bring up that comparison this time, but I will. I was saying in a private conversation with you that standing in front of Robert that close, it was not something like, "Oh, standing for God," because it's goofy, but it reminded me of the scene in the autobiography of Malcolm X. And if you've seen the movie with Denzel Washington, like Malcolm X converts to the Nation of Islam, not the first religious conversion, but like he writes this guy that he looks up to, who's the leader, and the leader starts just telling him, "Well, you need to get your stuff straightened out. So copy the dictionary word for word while you're in jail. Get yourself to be articulate, whatever." But like, essentially through this correspondence or through this influence, when Malcolm actually stands before him, like he just falls to his knees and he starts like crying. And I was like, the emotions I think were similar in that way of this band and just their interests and the things they mention. And I know I'm not the only person here that feels this way. That is all stuff that millions of people go, "What is that?" And they go look it up and they learn about it, or they say, "I wonder what that, this is, about or connected to." And so I just thought like that was the only thing I could really compare off the top of my head of how much of an influence they've had on just my thinking of the world, but also my personal interest as an adult and just the curiosity. So that was similar, but I wouldn't say it's the best comparison.
Well, but you can tease out. So what's the name of the guy that he what's his name? The guy that Malcolm sees?
Yeah, Elijah Muhammad.
So Elijah Muhammad, go ahead.
Yeah, the Nation of Islam leader at that time. And, who in the long term of his career did not live up to a nice reputation such as the Cure had. So that part's a little dodgy. But, for Malcolm, I mean, he knows how much of a transformation has undergone from this person's influence. And
But that's it. Yeah. So it's really from your personal origin story to where you are now, whether or not the band Elijah Muhammad, Gugalanga, Manga Dinga Dong meets your expectations of because you saw the Cure, you didn't meet the Cure. You saw the Cure, right?
Yeah.
So that, to me, the symbolism of falling to your knees is more of again, you made this pilgrimage that took you through your life story. Mm-hmm. And what you just said was, the fact that they're still here, they're still playing, you're still here. So it's really this is goofy, but it's the hero's journey. It's like a classic hero's journey. And I just think that's really, really important to keep driving home that it's your personal experience. It's your journey of highs and lows.
Yeah. I think that Dream Tour, for instance, I was becoming me as an adult, and I think Atlanta was the first real long road trip I'd taken in a car that worked well. My mom was still worried about me driving all that way. When I got home, she wanted me to call her and let her know I was safe. I was 20, not even 21. I was 20. And so, to go all that ways, and even to tell my mom, "Oh, it's a band I'm going to see." The picture hangs up in my room. The shirts that you still wash because I don't know how to do laundry yet, like that. So that was the sort of coming of age, and then I think just every few years as they would tour, because then you've got Curiosa, and I'm in a different spot. I remember who I took to this show. My girlfriend at the time lost the tickets in the bathroom, and I had to text my friends in the venue to bring me theirs, and then I could get in and get back to our seats, and that was a whole mess. But I remember damn, dude, totally different person. All these new things have happened, but the cycle of their tours is this sort of reckoning process of I've had highs and lows since the last time, and now that they're on tour, I just want to fucking sing and have a good time. I want that experience again. And it's been fortunate, 2000, 2004, 2008, Ultrafest in 07, nice little jaunt. Nobody was there for the Cure. It was so fun. I mean, there were, but it was Tiesto headlined it, so Ultrafest was amazing. Then you've got the 2008 tour, and then it was Reflections, and then 2016, then 2022, and then Mexico City in between that. I mean, but I just think of how busy my life's been, and then this is this one recurring theme where it's if that's coming again, I gotta do it. I gotta let it loose. I mean, that's one of the you can't get me to sing anywhere else, but I'll sing the whole fucking show. Yeah. God, Madison Square Garden. When you and I first hung out, I ran into you in the UK, but when we hung out after Madison Square Garden, oh my God, that was my birthday. I turned 44 that night. Yeah. And I mean, my fiance is there with me, and I'm belting it out to every song, even the ones where she's like, "You get annoyed when this one plays on the radio." And I'm like, "It doesn't matter. It's live. It doesn't, this is, it's a different thing. It's not played out on the radio."
Yeah.
When people aren't as much of a Cure fan as you, Just Like Heaven comes on, hey, isn't your favorite song? You're like, shut up.
Right? Give me secrets.
When it's live, it doesn't matter what it is.
Right. So I'm going to fast forward just because of time, because you did make it into the Troxy. You were one of the lucky randos who. Did you get in? I forgot. Did you get in because somebody was handing out tickets at the end?
No, this was completely random. So I saw you earlier that day.
Yeah.
And I told you, I was like, I don't have a ticket. I'll come back and hang out. I got to go into the city and get a pair of boots per request from home and go find me a pair of boots. So I was headed to the Fly store and I went and I'm just like killing time around like Covent Garden and they didn't have any shoes and I'm just like, whatever. And I paid a black cab, which I never do, but like where that show was, Troxy was like Limehouse is just fucking weird armpit of London. Like you got to take these weird trains to get to central London. So I said, I'm going to pay a black cab to drive. I've never done a black cab in my life. So I got this old fella, and he's like, oh, now you've come all that way to see the cure. Oh, they've been around quite a time, haven't they? Like that. And then we're stuck in a traffic jam. So the conversation was for a long time. In the cab, Mike, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head, but he posted in this Facebook group that had been formed of people that were trying to angle for Troxy tickets in some way. And most everybody got a ticket. But like it was known by a few in that group that I had BBC. I was very superstitious to not tell anyone about BBC before or even post. Like I didn't post that I met Steve Coogan until after BBC because I thought I would jinx myself of getting into BBC. Like I had all these weird superstitions in my head. So anyway, the Troxy was like, you got nothing to lose. You're running into your friends on the street already. And in the black cab, someone posted, I don't think they scanned my barcode when I walked in. So if anyone wants to try, just see if they'll take my barcode. So I walk to the Troxy, like I get dropped off at the Troxy, and I was just going to like linger around outside or see if I could get a ticket or something. And I didn't even believe it was going to work. And I go to the security guard and there's this girl with a sign. It says, please, one Troxy ticket. And the show is already like 45 minutes in. And I show the security guard, I go, hey, where do I scan my ticket? And this guy goes, that ticket says one of two. So this girl needs a ticket. So where is the two? And I'm like, that's complicated because it's not my ticket. And you don't know how I have this. So I just go, I need to figure this out. Who scans the tickets? And he points me. And I just go up and I can hear the show. They got like the free buttons and the merch table out there now. And I just go, and the guy, I don't even know if he scanned. He just goes, nice. And I just got in. And so I got in during the first break before the next 2 hours of the encore. And I mean, by that point, I'd already had a few pints in Covent Garden. And just why I'm like, oh my God, like that lucky horseshoe up my ass is radiating because the BBC and then now this and, Cougs and just this wonderful time. Like by that point, I'm like 5 nights into the trip and I was like, this has been non-fucking stop. Like it was annoying. Like I'm sending these updates to home and it's like, I get home and it's like every freaking day something happened to you that was amazing. Like I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
And then Troxy, the best part is that the show ends and then I see you and a few others and they're like, you fucking got in? And I'm like, even like I lucked out. So that made show 21. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's like, oh, I missed the album. Yeah. Okay. Like I got in and that venue was gorgeous. Like what a beautiful venue. So
yeah.
It was magical. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think again, it goes back to just trying. I mean, It's hard when it doesn't work out, but like you said, like even if you hadn't gotten in, you would have been in England, you would have seen your friend, you would have traveled, like if you're mentally prepared.
Yeah.
For those kinds of things. Again, it's just the act of trying, and it's luck. Like a lot of it is just luck. We're getting comments of like magic and I think somebody might have said elves, but
oh well, I will never. Yeah, I've had this idea in my head, and I'm just going to say it. Nobody needs to understand it, but I need to say it, and that is, I will never totally believe that it was a random thing with the BBC. Like I just, for some reason, think Robert Smith has little elves and things happen. And I won't even get into those thoughts, but it's just like this was purely, strangely magically weird. I mean, my name, the address, my friend's name, his address, same address. Like the day later, I'm like, like, what did they do? Like, it's somebody who said on the 10th that they couldn't go, and then they reached back out to like, it just came together magically. But I've really had some good luck. Like I've caught shows where the one time they played the big hand, I was there at Ultrafest of all places. The one night I go to the Reflections, I see Do the Hansa. I'm cold, like as well. Oh God, like Siamese twins in West Palm. Like I've been freaking lucky. But I think there's something about the pilgrimage and the travel bit too. Like I love to travel anyway. And when you get the knack of doing it and you understand the ropes of the ups and downs of traveling the road and the planes, trains, automobiles, that comes second nature. It's like, we're going to the Cure show. I don't give a shit if it's in Poland or Kathmandu. I'm going. If I have the means to go, if I find the way to go, it's an adventure. And if you don't have that spirit, then maybe you'll just catch them when they come through town. But it's been interesting to really learn like how well traveled some of you are. I mean, I remember when we first started talking, you and I started helping people figure out, guys, local transport in London is not on strike. You can get to the Wembley Arena. Like it was that kind of connectivity was experience talking and,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's important. I hope, my goal with these stories is, I mean, I love hearing people's stories of joy, but I also love sharing, as I think you do too, Ben, because of your short stories and just storytelling in general. But there's a lot of people who can't go, not because they have bad luck, but because they don't have money, because they're disabled, because they're sick, because they have 10 kids, whatever, like you name it. And so, my hope is that these stories help get people there. I mean, unfortunately, like one of the things I relate to a lot in your story is the anxiety. Because, I don't know, that's just a part of it, is like, especially like getting that part where you were talking about I'm not in the door yet. Like, dude.
Yeah. Well, it was so much hype about that it could be overbooked, and it likely was overbooked, and too many tickets were given out. And so realizing that we might miss the threshold after coming all that way, had me wound up until we got there. And so doing recon and talking to the security guard and all that was all about, like, my mom we have like a word for it. I won't say it just because for anonymity, but we call it like an itis. Like my mother's worrying about making sure the door. Oh, did I close the garage door when I drove away? And like looping around the block and making sure you closed it. And I was like, Mom, that trait paid off because we did the recon on Monday. We did get in. Like there are people back at home. One of my friends, the bartender that is always like, tell them the story. What happened to the BBC? She messaged you, I think, because she thought she was asking me, but like the night of the BBC, she says she accidentally messaged you and said, "Did you get in?" And you were like, "He got in, yes." Like, do you remember? Like, but anyway, like I had people at home that were just like overwhelmingly, like surprisingly nice support of, well, if anyone deserves that, it's you. Around here, anybody could have had that happen and deserves it. It's you, and that was like fucking really sweet. That was nice to hear. So
yeah, it is nice.
Yeah. When you live somewhere long enough and they learn your fandom over the decades.
yeah, definitely. So we're getting close to the end of. I always like to cap it at 2 hours because or else we're really going to just put people to sleep. But I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. Cure anxiety, cure magic for Arusha and Ben. Yes, I was also very lucky to get a ticket to the Troxy, which I still can't believe. Jody Ann says when they play the Toronto, I'd be more than happy to do another pre-show chat. Yeah, definitely. I hope that they tour. I mean, I know that they're talking about it, but I wanted to close on two things, Ben. Again, just to prep you, when we were talking about like the Troxy side, even with the album, and like I was like a crying fucking mess because I was there since 4 a.m. and I didn't get to the front, but I kind of did, and you had this reflection that getting old is hard. And I feel like that's important to bring up. And then I want to end with the shells. But just so you know, like, I don't know if you can get into that sort of like philosophical professor mode of what you kind of saw on the Troxy side, or just in your own experience of like, they're still here, we're still here, but we're all aging.
Yeah. I think I think what brought my awareness of other fans into the forefront of my mind, and to start thinking about the trajectory of everyone's life, came during COVID, and also because social media, Facebook specifically, for better or for worse, amplifying the hype, and so many conversations happening and nerding out and digging and thinking and like uh, wishing based on little hints given. Like there were tens of thousands of people in different groups all through the depths of COVID, hoping for something like a tour and a new album, and it happened. But what I learned in those years of talking and learning about so many people is that we all have these like different struggles, and people are sharing their circumstances of what can happen or what can't. But like, I think on the one hand, it explains the ticket sales for the band. I mean, like 37.5 million just in the US alone yielded from just the success of that tour. That's not talking merch, alcohol, and not Europe, not everywhere else. It's just like, I don't know if they could have even expected how much it meant to people to just hope for another time. But I think it was also, I mean, essentially it was a plague we lived through, and everyone's, I think all of us kind of have been visited by our thoughts on mortality in the last few years. And so, and then also the fact that, the morose tone of the album and the songs. I mean, my fucking mom, I took her to the Tampa show. She'd never seen The Cure, but she was like, I got to see this eventually. What's this all about? And by that point, she liked their songs. But I mean, Alone really chokes her up. I mean, when I first heard it, I mean, I still tear up when I think about it. So I think the album also kind of carries that sort of vibe, is aging, and it makes me, the weird thing I can't get out of my head. One of my grandmothers, when she was in a nursing home, she wasn't my grandma, she was like a step grandma, but I'd have to go to the nursing home. She's like, she'd be like, I'm just a kid at heart. And, she's like, I'm still young at heart. Like, I can't see nothing no more, but I'm still a kid. And I'm like, I couldn't relate to it. But I'm also like, you're saying weird stuff and this is uncomfortable to be here. Oh my God, I empathize with her so much now. And she's gone now, but like, damn, dude, I relate now. Like, and it just, I guess that was the whole reason I was such a freak when I saw Al, was because I was like, you just don't know like what a catharsis this is. Oh, like,
Yeah. Well, I think I was just going to say, is there people saying that getting old is a privilege? It is a privilege.
It is.
Absolutely. But it's also fucking hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. And so, for me being at the Troxy, I was like, every time now it's like, oh my God, like I've been doing this for so long. I'm still here. They're still here. There are young people next to me that this is their first Cure show. This is their first Cure album, and that's all great. But, I personally think that is what is like Alone and End Song are just so sublime. And when I hear stories from fans, a lot of times it's this pilgrimage, it's the longevity of, I was talking to another friend of mine about their pilgrimage with another band, and he was saying, it's taken me 18 years or 30 years to get to this point. And it was just like seeing his favorite band in an interview live.
Yeah.
Which is like nothing to many people, but to him it's really important just because of A, B, C, D, F, G. So because I'm always like, why am I so goddamn emotional? Like, why can't I just like smoke a doob and like chill? Like, I see a lot of people drinking and just being like, hey, party. And I can't do that. And sometimes I'm like,
Oh,
I
I
did.
think I drink during the shows because it's my only way to cope with some of the emotions racing through me. I mean, fuck that Troxy show. I mean, after the BBC, my emotions came down and I finally was able to relax. We spent the next day out in the countryside in Kent, going to like churches out in the middle of nowhere and Knoll Palace, and it was finally like, all right, like it happened and everything worked out great. But that catharsis, it's like a freaking religious experience. I remember Lowell saying that around the time where he did Cured. He said that a lot of people have told him that Cure shows are like a religious experience. But for me, it's really a time of reckoning of like since the last time I was here and the show before that and a few years before that, these are like time slices of your life. You're moving through space and time. And instead of looking at a photograph, you're in a Cure show and you're going, what did I just go through since I saw him the last time? And what's changed? And I'm fucking blessed and a half. Like, that lucky horseshoe thing is no joke. Like, I'm so grateful and I feel for so many folks that can only get to listen to this. And, I have a friend, he says, how many times have you seen them now? And then he finally saw him in Tampa. He finally saw him on the last tour in Tampa. He's like, I never thought I'd get to see him. And I'm like, you could have been coming with me all these years. What are you talking about? But like, it's, I think it maybe for those of us who have done this sort of cyclical journey, it's a time of reflection. You know?
I don't know if you can see this, like,
Yeah, Ruben,
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, and then Jojo, I don't know if Jojo's question was directed to me or not, but yeah, I didn't get to the front because of accessibility, but it was really more, it wasn't the accessibility people, it was the disorganization of the Troxy, which benefited Ben and some others. And for me, I was like, oh, like there was some frustration with that, but it's all's fair in love and war in a way. All right, so we have just a few minutes. I think we're going to close out on some Florida magic. Do you want to show your seashells?
Yeah. Some Florida Cure folklore.
Yeah.
A couple things. One, I'm very grateful that the Cure are a band that actually still come to Florida. There's so many bands that just kind
They
of go to
fucking love
Atlanta,
Florida.
and then they do, and they showed it on the
Weird.
last tour. I mean, like Robert's wearing a shell shirt in Tampa, and then he's wearing a gay pride flag in Miami, and then on the Reeves guitar case on the side, because I snuck around at the Miami show and just jumped in different places because the security's always so relaxed by the middle of the show. And I got in on the side on the stage, right, I guess that is. And it says like "Stay Woke" on the guitar case for Reeves. And I took a picture of that and sent it to a good friend of mine in Seattle who just would appreciate that with all the politics ongoing in Florida. And the fact that Robert was consciously wearing shirts through the tour that showed his understanding and his appreciation of the different places. I fucking loved that he had the Omar's Coming shirt in Baltimore. Like just that, like, okay, cool. You like The Wire too. Awesome.
Yeah.
But there is some Florida folklore that I'll just throw in there because these are stories never heard. One, there is a massage therapist that works for a chiropractor down the road. And I've known her for years. She used to bartend at the Kit Kat in downtown Orlando. And she saw my Cure shirt one day and she's like, oh my God, dude, I worked at Walt Disney World in like, I think it was like the early 90s. And she's like, and I saw Robert Smith. I think Mary was with him, but she broke out of her cast member bullshit. You got to be there. And she ran up to him and she just goes, I'll lose my job, but I don't care. Can you please just give me your autograph? And he was just like, yeah, sure. He just like signs it. The picture of the Cure at Universal Studios with like Frankenstein and Beetlejuice. I mean, that's just right down the road. So it's just funny to think like I was probably in middle school that day,
Right.
like just learning how to do fractions. And they were there, before they usually are awake, and probably being toured by a girl. A girl's father that did security there for celebrities probably was the one showing them around. And just such a small world, like they're like right over there.
Right.
But I think like I've heard, and I've never tracked it down because I don't enjoy going to the parks that much. But I've heard someone has actually tracked down the brick at the Magic Kingdom that says Robert and Mary Smith. and like the year. They paid to have a brick with their names on it, like put in like around the pavilion where you walk in.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is that much of a nerd, they want to just go count bricks, go ahead. But the one that really stands out to me, aside from just, I mean, especially after this, just kind of becoming the local Cure nerd, where it's like, guys, you don't have to put it on the radio just because I showed up at the bar. Like, you can, and if you do, play the B-sides, for fuck's sake. Stop playing these singles. Like, you know, I have to say thank you in your promotion for this, for playing all the stuff I love. You know, Man Inside My Mouth and Throw Your Foot. Like, those are probably my two. I'm just like, oh, okay, she knows what's up. All right, good.
Right.
But the story that I'll wrap it up this way. My friend Tess, she wanted me to say her full last name. I'm not going to do it just for algorithm and AI reasons. But my friend Tess, the one who in high school was picked on because she was goth, and there was a rumor going around that someone in the Cure got her pregnant. She this is the kind of
Florida
shit,
man.
yeah, like my friend, that's how they picked on her in high school, is that she slept. She's like 16. All right, so that is complete fiction, for fuck's sakes. Anyway, she and my bartender friend Elena, who is always like, tell them about the BBC. When they heard I got the tickets to the BBC, they said, what are you going to do if you meet them? What are you going to say? And I'm glad I didn't, honestly. Like, at least not in that chaos. But I was thinking about it over the phone, and I was like, well, when I met Jason in 2007 by chance, he was standing behind me at Ultrafest. I was like, that's Jason Cooper. And I had told the girl I was with, who I had just broken up with, we were still at the show. She was more breaking up with me, but I was just like, we'll still go to the show, but we're playing by my rules. We go to the rail. You better wear a diaper because we're not going to the bathroom. So
wow,
ridiculous.
Florida man forces girlfriend to wear a diaper. Jesus Christ.
I was like, we are full on going for the fan level. Like, this is our chance. Like, this is, not many fans are going. Like, this is a completely different kind of a thing. Like, Robert says he agreed to it because DJs play Cure singles. Like, it was a weird show. Anyway, Jason's behind us. And I'm like, take a picture when I go up and say hi to Jason. And so I got this picture. I should have sent it to you, but I have to dig it up. And I'm like, just starting to shake Jason's hand. But honestly, all I could say was, I drove all the way from Orlando here. Like, I couldn't think of anything to say. So Tess was asking me, like, what will you say if you do meet them? Or what will you ask? And Elena was as well. I was like, all I can do is, it has to be a Florida thing. So I came to this, like, preparation of asking them if the shell greeting cards sold on the website, the Cure's merch site, they have these greeting cards of shells. Okay. And here's one. These are like elaborate works of art made of shells.
Mm-hmm.
And once I saw these on the site, and it's like the Bunny Lake greeting cards design. Okay, so now I've bought 2 packets of it. You're welcome. But one, and I bought them after I was like, just to have them. When you and I started talking about all this, I was like, I got to know once and for all, like, what the hell is up with these? So as soon as I saw these cards on the site, it brought back a story back to the Dream Tour. So at the time, I didn't have a lot of money, and you had to go to Peach's record store and stand in line with Jimmy Buffett and Tina Turner fans and wait your turn to see what seats you end up with for the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting and I'm buying. I had to go one day to get the Atlanta tickets, and I think the next day to get the West Palm tickets. So I'm standing in line. I get there, and holy shit, 5th row. I'm like 5th row tickets blinking in front of me. I did not get that good of a ticket in Atlanta. So I'm like, all right. So me, my girlfriend, Josh's girlfriend, I want 6 tickets. And immediately I'm like, I'll make my money back on the 2 extra tickets, or I'll have to do
I just want to hear about
like,
the shells, dude.
Well, that's the thing. So, like, yeah, I know. I'm wrapping it up. So I was trying to, like, sell the ticket or try to trade it, and the only place this was happening at the time was eBay.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't scalp the ticket. You had to be like, people were trying things like, well, you're bidding on a black pen, and with it comes this ticket. Like, I just said face value plus discuss like a trade of some sort. And one of the people that called me that didn't end up getting the ticket, but one of the people that called me is this woman and she worked at Shell World in Kissimmee, which is like outside of Disney. And she's like, "Oh my God, please let me have this ticket." And I'm like this like weird broker. I'm brokering like, "Well, what do you got? What do you trade?" Like, and she goes, "Well, I'll tell you a story. When I worked at Shell World, when they were touring, and I think it was the Wild Mood Swings tour. It might have been Wish, but I think maybe it was Wish. But she worked there. She's like, that place Shell World? But yeah, she goes, and it's closed now, but you can look it up there's a thing about it on YouTube. She goes, well, we got a call at Shell World, and Robert's manager called us saying that, hey, Robert Smith, The Cure, they're on tour, and we would like to arrange an after-hours shopping event or whatever, an opportunity for him to come in and not be bothered. And so she's like, we had to open up late, and then the bus pulls up, and Robert gets out of the bus, and he walks into Shell World, and he ended up blowing like $10,000 on shells. And I'm like, what? And I go, how do you spend $10,000 on shells? And she goes, well, he bought these really elaborate works of art made of shells. They're like really cool when you look at them. And she described them. She's like, they're like, they hang on the wall and it's like shells arranged into little flowers and shit. And I'm like, okay, so 3 years pass. And this shows up on the website. And my question was, if I were to ever meet, is to say, dude, the Bunny Lake cards, did you buy that at Shell World, Orlando, Florida? That was the only thing I could think of, is like something that connects me to them, to a story I've heard, like something interesting. I guess I'll never know. Or maybe a little elf will send me a card this Christmas.
Maybe. You never know.
Yeah, but
That's
I'm glad I have them.
Florida man, everybody. He's going to ask Robert about shells and Shell World, and then we will know. Then we will know. Well, thank you very much, Ben, for talking today, and thank you to everybody who has showed up and participated. I just love doing these stories. I love talking to fans, and I love talking about what brings people joy.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm flattered that you invited me as a guest to be on Push, and I have to say, just keep doing it, because it doesn't matter why you do it, so long as you want to do it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it goes back to, again, like just doing your thing, and whatever Robert said in the book, like, you may not be accepted, but you're not going away. So thanks to everyone. I think I'm going to end on end song from the BBC. I hope that I don't have to, I hope the algorithms doesn't shut it down because of the music licensing, but I guess there's only one way to find out. So Eric, when I put this on, we're going to disappear.
Okay.
And the only way, they'll still be able to hear us until you log off or whatever. So.
Okay.
But thanks so much. It was so fun to talk and get your story, and to more Cure gigs.
Thanks for hanging around listening. See you all around next time, hopefully.
Bye. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, solo. Okay. Wonder if I talk over it, if the algorithm won't cut me off.
I mean, I hear you talking over it, so...
Yeah.
That's my bald head way up in the front.
Oh, you could see yourself?
Yeah. Just the male pattern baldness in the blazer.
I know,
I see it.
I felt like there was another guy, though.
I mean, I actually have hair. That's the thing. But, I mean, I can't miss myself. I'm like, oh, there you are.
Right.
Probably the best advertisement for a hair loss prescription pill ever.
Nice. Inspiring superfans, stay young at heart. Thanks, Shirley. I wonder if I could... I mean, we are analyzing this show, so they shouldn't knock me, because this is like a... it falls into what am I trying to say? Fair use.
Fair use. Yeah. Yeah, let's hope that the whole thing doesn't get scrapped off the internet.
It's so weird. I've heard this song so many times and I still can't handle it.
Oh, Ian was here. Hi, Ian. Hi, Stephanie.
Yeah, man. And Carl Palmer was here. Roxy Hall. Shivo.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet so many of them, too. JoJo and so many names.
I love that they get close up to the drums too. Like,
yeah,
there's never enough camera angles on drums.
Oh, it was wild. I mean, the cameras on the tracks just moving back and forth in front of me. So it seemed like they had 24 cameras floating around the whole time.
They probably did. I mean, they have one mounted there. So they might have like little GoPros or, you know.
It was great also to see Roger back in the group, see Terry back in Austin. So, a lot of hope.
Yeah. Like, nobody ever does that camera angle, that wide shot they just did with the drums. I love how this song takes like 6 minutes to get to the lyrics too, because one of the things I love about Cure songs, like The Kiss, you know?
Yeah, I would love if they brought that back. That'd be Oh, there I am on my
Oh my god, that was such a...
That's the best.
It is! I didn't even see that before!
Oh my god, yeah, I was so nervously not wanting to hold it up like a jerk. Just trying to be discreet.
There are the pedals.
Yeah, I'll have to show that one to my buddy. I'm sure many of those came post-1986.
That's so funny. That is such a clear shot of you. That's hilarious. Because I don't think they use that angle a lot in other parts of this. Or this one, for a matter of fact. I don't remember them going to the pedals very much.
It's just a completely different world. Like, I mean, this setting is just, it was awesome. Because it's not the festival setting with the massive TVs and the big aluminum stage. I mean, it really was like just. This is like the venue down the street from me.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Weird quality. so bizarre, so tiny.
I always thought it'd be so cool to be the person that's making the decisions on what cameras to cut to. Because you have like a board of 20 cameras and you have to make the decision, you know? Like that. Like no one ever does that shot.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately I flew home the day they were doing all the BBC specials, but can't have everything.
Yeah, I mean this lineup with the 6 of them is pretty special. Like you said, it's good to have Roger back, it's good to have Perry back, it's kind of wraps it up. I mean, not that, you know, like I said, we want them to go on forever, like the Rolling Stones, but...
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, and after this event, like I didn't mention in the discussion we had, but like, you know, I saw Jason and Simon outside going back and forth to the truck as I walked out, and I almost stopped Simon because I saw somebody else stopping for a photo, and I was just like, I don't need that. I just had this whole thing. Like, I'm good. I'm gonna go home.
Right.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm bobbing my head there. I remember I went to the theater to see the 2018 Hyde Park film with my mom. She was like, you went all that way, I want to see it. And I was like, dang, they blurred everybody out for that, you know, like the whole crowd. So I was like, I know where I was, but good on the BBC. They let the crowd just be visible.
I know, I like it, like, because like now when you look back in whatever, like fair gigs, any band from like the 80s or 90s, and you see the crowd, it's so exciting.
Yeah, it's like I was telling you about the TNC Club, that picture of that kid in the corner, like he's getting smashed up against the stage, and he's singing along to Let's Go to Bed, and I was like, well, it's way more comfortable than that, but I don't know if there's ever been something closer. I guess your show in Santa Monica was probably a similar size, like you said, but they're far and few between.
Yeah. Were the people around you excited? I mean, obviously they were, but did you get the sense that like everybody was 100%?
No. A lot of people were happy to be able to be there, but it really did seem like there was only a small percentage of us that were like the diehards that got in.
Right.
The Glaswegian lady, and there was a couple next to me. It seemed like it was really important to those two, but yeah, it was. There were people in line that they just got lucky and they got tickets and they applied because they liked the band. But again, it was that whole thing of, dude, yeah, Florida, just that just trumped it all.
Yeah.
There were these two ladies behind us in line that were like flasking it and getting a buzz before the show, and they just applied for multiple concerts at the BBC, and they were like regular ticket, like they just regularly kind of just got tickets for random bands that played there, I guess. So they'd seen more than one concert there, whether they liked the band or not. They just did that as a thing. So
that's
it's just a mixed bag.
All right.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Peace out, everybody. See you on the next one.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Yeah. Almost on that one.